The moment the celebration champagne splattered across the expensive monitors in the main conference room, I knew a betrayal was brewing. We had just shattered every traffic record by 400%, and the data architecture I engineered was performing flawlessly. Instead of celebrating my sleepless nights, my supervisor Vance approached me with a cold smirk. He quietly explained that corporate policy blocked my promised performance bonus. I did not scream or cause a scene right there among the cheering marketing teams. I simply nodded and walked back to my desk while realizing they considered me a temporary tool. Vance forgot that I personally negotiated our software vendor contracts to protect my own position. Hidden deep inside Section 4 was a specific stipulation that tied their legal infrastructure access directly to my ongoing financial compensation. By Monday morning, the corporate leadership team was flooding everyone with congratulatory emails that completely erased my name from the project. The official launch summary credited Vance and the vice president for 2 years of my intense labor. I quietly watched them steal the glory while sitting at my terminal and preparing a digital paper trail. They had no idea that they were dancing on a legal landmine. Instead of throwing a public tantrum, I drafted a very brief and clinical email to our head of legal compliance, Regina. I attached the original vendor contract and highlighted the hidden clause regarding technical lead compensation. I simply noted that a major operational compliance risk was developing regarding our data pipeline. After hitting the send button, I went back to my daily tasks and waited for gravity to do its work. The initial reaction from leadership was silent but aggressive exclusion. By Thursday afternoon, Vance had quietly removed my credentials from the primary operations channel and deleted my calendar invites. They clearly thought they could freeze me out until I quietly resigned from the company. Their desperate attempts to isolate me only proved that Regina was starting to ask difficult questions behind closed doors. While they ignored me, I built a comprehensive spreadsheet tracking every single corporate system dependent on my custom codebase. From the morning sales dashboards to the financial forecasting models, everything relied on my pipeline. Over 90 critical applications would instantly freeze if our software license became invalid. Vance was playing a dangerous game of chicken with a system he could not even begin to understand. On Friday morning, Regina called an unannounced emergency meeting with Vance and the Human Resources Director. I was deliberately excluded from the conference room, but the glass walls revealed their growing panic. Regina closed her laptop with absolute finality and informed them that the entire company was drifting into a massive breach. The room turned completely silent as the junior financial analyst confirmed my bonus was frozen. Regina explained that the software contract contained a strict 72-hour remedy window that was rapidly expiring. If the company failed to compensate the designated technical lead, the entire platform license would instantly terminate. Vance looked completely terrified as he realized his petty cost-cutting policy was about to trigger a system-wide blackout. Corporate arrogance had blindfolded them to the reality of their own legal vulnerability. The crash happened exactly at midnight when the automated data streams suddenly stopped feeding the corporate servers. By sunrise, the executive dashboards were completely blank, displaying a bright red banner indicating an invalid license. The DevOps team scrambled frantically, but their error logs showed absolute denial of service from the vendor side. The entire multi-million-dollar operation ground to a halt because of a single unpaid bonus. The atmosphere inside the office on Monday resembled a sinking ship with executives running frantically down the hallways. The chief financial officer was panicking because the upcoming investor call relied entirely on those frozen metrics. Vance attempted to blame a random technical glitch, but Regina stood firmly outside the executive suite with a thick black folder. Everyone finally realized that I was the only person who held the cure. Human Resources tried to quietly bypass the disaster by issuing a manual payroll adjustment later that afternoon. Regina immediately blocked their attempt and sent a company-wide message stating that late payments could not retroactively fix the legal breach. The vendor compliance team had already logged the violation and suspended our corporate access completely. I sat in the break room enjoying my tea while watching their kingdom crumble. Vance sent a panicked assistant over to my desk to beg for temporary transition documentation to help their team. I calmly reminded the young employee that I could not legally touch an unlicensed system without exposing myself to liability. The assistant scurried away in embarrassment, leaving Vance completely isolated in his glass office. I quietly packed my personal belongings and prepared for the inevitable phone call from the very top. The call arrived later that evening while I was relaxing at home away from the corporate chaos. The chief executive officer bypassed all assistants and dialed my personal number directly with desperation in his voice. He did not offer any pleasantries and simply asked what it would take to restore the data platform immediately. I told him to check his inbox for a comprehensive settlement proposal from my attorney. My legal proposal demanded immediate wire transfer of my original bonus, along with a massive 40% penalty fee. Furthermore, it required a substantial six-figure buyout of the license clause and a public acknowledgement of my work. The chief executive officer sighed deeply over the line and admitted they should have just paid the original bonus. I gave him a strict 24-hour deadline before the vendor finalized the termination. The following morning, my bank account reflected the full wire transfer, and the dashboard slowly blinked back to life. Vance was quietly reassigned to a different department, stripped of his authority and his pride. I walked away from that company with my financial future secured and a valuable lesson learned. When you build the entire foundation of an enterprise, never let them convince you that you are replaceable.